Hey everybody, and welcome back to That Outdoor Life with Matty Payne. So today we're talking mosquitoes, blackflies, deer flies, basically any bug that makes the outdoor life not fun up here in northern Ontario. So the product I've gone with to combat this is called the SkeeterVac, and it's just a brand name. There's a lot of these types of contraptions out there, but being Canadian and shopping at Canadian Tire for most of these types of needs, the brand they carry is SkeeterVac. And so, implicit in the name, you would think that it's a vacuum. But there's a word of caution there. They do make a model that does not have a vacuum. They make a model that does. And for the money that's involved with these things, they're not cheap, and we'll go over that later in the video. You'd expect that they'd have vacuums based on the name. But one of them doesn't, and that's the cheaper model. And that's the SkeeterVac 15-15. And then the other model I got here is the SkeeterVac 3100C, and it does have a vacuum. Now, what are these contraptions? So they're odorless, they're quiet, they're no tool assembly, and they basically run on propane. And what they do is they turn the propane into CO2. And as we know, bugs are attracted to CO2. That's what brings them to us as humans. And so these contraptions do that. They bring the bugs to them, and then they have some sort of mechanism that's going to catch them or stop them from leaving. So on the SV15, which is good to about a half acre, they say, and again, that's because the output of this one is about half of the output of the SV3100C. So on this one, the CO2 draws it to it, and it's got what's called a sticky trap, and it's just this here, and they come, they land on that, and they cannot get away. And I'll show you a close-up of that later, where I bet you there's over 5,000 bugs on that. Blackflies are tiny, and there's a ton of blackflies on that thing. That's from last year. So again, this thing goes together really easy. You just, there's no tools required. All you do is, I think, screw on the cap and maybe make a connection with the hose, and then you get your propane tank and you hook it up. It's that simple. And you put on the sticky trap, and boom, tack trap, and you got it. And then with the this guy, the SV3100C, what you do with that one, same thing, hook it up, but it's got a vacuum. And so not only does the propane emit the CO2, it also runs a little propane fired vacuum in there. When the bugs come, and sucks it in and it holds them in there. It's also got the sticky trap, or the tack trap as they call it, that goes around, so you catch bugs two ways with this one. Now the SV15 at Canadian Tire today is $419.99 plus tax. Canada, that's 13%. The SV3100C is $599.99. Now the mistake I made, I got the cheaper unit last year and I thought it had the vacuum, and it didn't. So $419, and all you get really is a thing that emits CO2, and you put a sticky piece of paper on it and it collects bugs. I don't know, quite expensive. It all comes down to the inconvenience of bugs versus the cost and what it's worth to you. So those are the two products. Again, I'll do some close-ups here so that you can all see it, but those are the two products. The vacuum one, again, I think it's a little more effective because it's got the vacuum part to it, but for the extra, 180 bucks, maybe it's really not worth it. Maybe that's where you'll decide. Or maybe you'll go with a cheaper product altogether. I just filled up 2 propane tanks, again on an exchange. So not filled them up, but on the exchange, and it was $35 each. That's tax in. And these tack traps, or this sticky paper here, that's $34.99 for 2. It also comes with this little kind of lure also. I think it's Octenol, they call it. And that's $34.99. So when you start to add up the investment cost and then the operating costs, these things aren't all that cheap. I will say, based on last year, I had 0 blackflies after June. So I'm pretty sure it interrupted the breeding cycle of the blackflies. We still had mosquitoes, not a lot of mosquitoes, definitely just not during the day, in the pool area and the sitting area. But at night, there was still mosquitoes. So having fires, you're still getting bitten by mosquitoes. And then out here, I find there's midges or no-see-ums or whatever you call them. And I don't think this really tackled that issue either. But it definitely took the blackflies. On the one that ran most of the summer, it has a lot of smaller deer flies, not bigger deer flies, but the smaller deer flies are on there. So it's taken out some of those too, which I'd have to say at the pool time is why I'm outside the most, other than working in the bush, which these aren't going to do because they only do a half acre and an acre. Got 70 acres here. So they don't do a great job with the horseflies. And at the pool, that's probably the most annoying fly there is because they're always around your head, and when they bite, it hurts. So yeah, there it is. I'll do some setting up and getting these things fired up. They're actually really easy to put together. Like honestly, out of the box takes 10 minutes to put these things together. No tools required. And install on the ground, like they have nice bases, sturdy bases that come with stakes. So that's no issue. Go together easy, and then just a button. You cook the propane up and you hold a button for 15 seconds and it ignites and then it runs. The one that puts out 1500 cc's of CO2 per hour lasts about 30 to 40 days. And this one, which puts out 30,000 cc's per hour of CO2, that lasts about 20 days, maybe 15, definitely somewhere between 15 and 20. So, you know, less output lasts longer, more output obviously lasts shorter. So those are kind of the notes on these things. As you can see, and I'll show you close-ups of this, it definitely works. Like there's bugs on every one of these things. There is unfortunately a couple insects you don't want to get. I've got a couple monarch butterflies on here, which is unfortunate to see, but again, take the bad with the good, right? So, or the good with the bad. Not much you can do. The good being all the things that drive you nuts, and the bad being nice, beautiful butterflies and some other flies that don't annoy you. But that's just how it works when you're doing a one fit solution. So, anyways, we'll get these things together and placed in their spots. And that's the other thing I'm going to try this year, and I'll do an update later on in the summer. We'll show you what I've caught, but I'm also going to try to rotate them a bit. Because what I've learned is you kind of get the bugs in the area, but if you go to a different area in an open space around your property, you still might have bugs. And that's what I found was bugs don't really migrate. They kind of live in one general area. So you got to kill those bugs, interrupt the breeding cycle, and then you're good. But for the most part, you might go to another part of your property and you're going to have bugs there. So I'm going to cycle them around. I don't know if they get used to it. I don't know how that would be, because if they land, they die. So I don't know, but it felt like it got more ineffective as the season went on. And maybe that's just the reality that we're killing most of the bugs. I don't know. Let you decide. Let you give it a try. But again, $419.99, $599.99 plus tax in Canada. That's 13%. Then you've got your propane tanks. I already had the tanks, so I didn't have to buy the tanks. It's just an exchange, $35 for a new tank, so, or a filled tank, an exchange tank. So I mean, and then the sticky tacks, which you're gonna have to replace probably twice a year if you've got a lot of bugs. I mean, you're going through $34.99, and then the lure. I don't know if that's just a marketing feature, if it really works, but they say you need it. So there you go. It's not the cheapest thing. And if you're running it all summer long, say for the 4 or 5 months, you know, you're in 35 times 4. So you're at, you know, what are you at, 150 bucks for the propane alone, plus the sticky tax. You know, you're over 200 bucks just on operating costs a year to run one of these things, if you run it all summer long. So I don't know, kind of the jury's out, but it definitely catches bugs, and it definitely eliminated the blackflies for us last year. And that's where we're at. 2 weeks ago, we had snow on the ground. In the morning, woke up and there was a little bit of snow on the ground. And today it's 29 degrees. That's just Northern Ontario for you. We get the extremes on both sides, and then very short periods in the shoulder seasons. So with that plus 29, it sure brings the blackflies out. And believe me, they're annoying. They're not biting yet, but when they start to bite, you don't want to be outside working in them. So let's get these things set up, get them rolling, start taking care of the bugs. Right on. Alright guys, so here's a close-up of the SV15. There's the head of the unit there. And really simple, really lightweight. You just connect that to the propane tank. Propane tank sits in that little unit there. And then you can see these stakes, they just go into these two holes and pin into the ground, and then it doesn't tip over. Top of the unit here. You can take this off, which I'll show you when I go to set it up, and it's got the button underneath there to ignite it. So here's the SV3100C, and again, very similar head. The dimensions are a little bit different, but as you can see, it's got the tack trap or the sticky paper that catches them. But then it's also got this here, which is the vacuum. As I said, SkeeterVac, right? You'd think it's got to have a vacuum. So here's the dish. This is from kind of the end of last season, and it was, it's not a ton in there, but you can see there's definitely caught a bunch of mosquitoes. So those are mosquitoes that are not going to be bugging you at night or while you're having a fire or out enjoying your pool. So again, it does work. How effective? Hard to tell. Still getting bit by mosquitoes. Like I said, the blackflies are eliminated. The horseflies are still around, and I got to come up with a different contraption or way to deal with them. This definitely works for the mosquitoes and the blackflies. Definitely works. And then you've got the tack trap, so that there's the paper that goes on it, around it. And in that box comes two. And then you've got the fine tune, which is the Octenol lure device. And then here is my first one from last year. These are the two units, but let's go get these things installed and get them working. Look at this crazy guy here on top of the winter pool cover.
What are you doing? What are you doing? Get going. You get going, you. What are you doing? Come on, let's go. Get going. You get going.
You see that? That's how that goes on. Just sits right on that handle lip there of the propane tank. Just slide it on, boom, you're done. Pretty cool. All right, so it popped, which means it should have taken. Now we'll just watch to see if this needle starts to climb in here. I don't know if you can see that, but that needle was in the white. There's kind of like an RPM gauge, and it's climbing into the green. So there you go. It's lit. The needle's climbing, showing that it is actually lit and producing CO2. Should climb all the way to the far side of that needle. It goes from white to green, and we're climbing about, we're about a third of the way there. So we'll let that go. We'll throw on the top, and that's it for this one. And remember, this is the SV15. This does not have a mosquito vac, so it's only the sticky tack that's going to catch bugs. I've situated it right beside our pond, or our creek, where our creek kind of drains into. It's not a pond because the holding side is let go, but that's what we're looking at. So hopefully we're going to catch those breeding mosquitoes, catch those black flies coming around. And as I said, I'm going to be strategic this year and move this thing around probably every second propane tank. So leave it here for a month, and then when I get the next propane tank, I'm going to move it to another spot. Try it out that way this year. We'll see if that works or not. But there's the go. So as you can see, it sets up in seconds. Even though I already had it assembled, the assembly is only 2 or 3 steps. Add the propane tank. Don't forget your skirt, and throw on the new tack trap or the sticky tape paper, and boom, you're ready to go. So there's the SV15 deployed and ready to catch mosquitoes, hopefully. Alrighty, step 1, like last time, is get the base in, secure her down. Pretty level there. Unlike the last one, this has 4 pegs to hammer in. Real simple. Comme ça, just like that. There we go. Now I'll remember to put the skirt on the propane tank this time. Do that first. Set the propane tank. This just clips into the post, and then we'll start it the same way. Unfortunately, I only have 1 tack trap or sticky paper. So luckily this is still sticky, it's just not got all the room left on it. So we'll see how it does. I'm gonna have to go to the store and buy that, $34.99 for a pack of 2. I must have used a second one last year. And we'll enter the vacuum and we'll get her started. And there you go. We've got some mosquito traps, blackfly traps, horsefly kinda traps set up, ready to rock. So this one's more like a jacket than a skirt. It's got a zipper. There we go. A little spot for your valve. All right, she's connected. All right, we got it. So the one thing, I don't know if you can notice all the bugs here, but the one thing you've got to, on this one, unlike the other one, you've actually got a control valve you've got to hold in. Maybe I should read the instructions better, but you've got a control valve you got to hold in and then press the ignition button. On the other one, there's just an ignition button. So a little bit different, but it is going into the green. So we'll watch that, get up into the green, and hopefully this thing starts working. There you go, they're buzzing around. Again, we'll get rid of what was already in the trap. So, pretty clean. I'll check this, I'll do it update in about a month when I replace the propane tank and see where this is at. And the last piece is I'll throw the Octenol in this one. So the other one got a new tack trapper, sticky paper, and this one will get the new lure. It's called Octenol, or they call it fine-tune lure. So we'll throw that in there. Done. All right, everybody, that's the end of the video for today. Thanks for watching. I hope you learned something about the SkeeterVacs. And remember, we looked at the SV15, that's the one without the vacuum, and the SV3100C, which is over my shoulder here. It's got the vacuum. They both have the tack traps. Something I didn't mention, which you can probably see in the video, is you'll see some flashing on that one. The SV3100C also has a built-in LED light that runs on the propane, and it's supposed to entice the mosquitoes at night to the area. So just an added feature on the SV3100C. I guess for that extra 180 bucks, it's another thing you get. So after this, I'm gonna do an operating cost spreadsheet, just flash that up for a minute or so on the video so everyone can take a look at that in case you missed it as I explained it. Might be easier to see it. You can maybe do a print screen and print it off and to help make your decision if you wanna go with this. I also wanted to comment on a few mistakes. I said that in Canada, tax is 13%. That's incorrect. Tax in Ontario, Canada is 13%. Every province sets its own provincial tax rate. In Ontario, it's 8% for a total of 13% with the Canada portion or the federal portion. So my apologies for that. I also stated that last year the blackflies were eliminated by the end of June. I meant by the end of May. Blackflies pretty much wane out by the end of June anyways. They're still around, but they're not as heavy as they are in May and June, so I meant to say that. So those two things are wrong. And then I'm gonna do a follow-up video in 2 weeks' time, and I'll show you the results of what these things have done. We'll talk about overall if they're effective. We'll talk about what the tack traps look like. I'll show you what's in the vacuum for this one, and I'll give you my overall take if it's worth it. And again, I think it's always gonna come down to a personal choice, and that is, you know, do you want to get outside and spend the money, or are you just okay with the bugs and getting bit? I was at the moose camp yesterday, which is a little bit up the North Highway, just north of North Bay, and they are horrendous to the point where you didn't even want to be there. And I'm scratching today like you wouldn't believe. So I'm always going to have these things going because I want to enjoy my property. And it just comes down to, is it worth it for you? But at least you'll have the information, right? And to all my Canadian viewers, I just want to say happy May long weekend. Today is Monday and it's a holiday. I hope everyone got outside or did something they love to do. And so with that, I'll leave it there and say, whatever you do, remember, get outside. Make sure you have some bugs, something to help you at this time of year, but get outside. Right on, and bye now.